when the big monster helicopter comes in and then they're jerked apart, and it's so traumatic that it affects these animals the rest of their lives, and many of them are so traumatized because they remember that horrible experience of being jerked out of their natural homes. My name is Craig Downer. I'm a wildlife ecologist. I'm a fourth generation Nevadan here, descendant of pioneers, and I grew up here observing the wild horses and the burros. But when they're jerked out by violent people and put in artificial situations and torn away from their families and their herds and the homes where they lived all their lives, that's extremely cruel, and that's entirely contrary to the true intention of the Wild Free Roaming Horses and Burro Act.
A controversial roundup of wild horses is underway in Nevada. The federal government is moving thousands of Mustangs from their natural habitat. The government says the land is overpopulated and could become unsustainable for wildlife and livestock.
My name is Laura Lee. I'm a photojournalist.
80% of my time is spent on the road. In the last 7 months, I've been in 6 different states, documenting horses in the wild and at various roundups. And that's all I do right now.
I've opened up my life so that, because this is what I wanted to do. And so this is how I spend my day. And so in that, I'm probably much different than a lot of people who can give 2 or 3 hours a week. I can give 24 every day.
My name is John Neal, and I'm the facility manager here at the National Wild Horse and Burro Center in Palomino Valley. This facility is a holding and placement center for excess wild horses and burros that are removed from Nevada's public lands. This is a place where these horses come to that get prepared for the adoption program, which is the outlet for these wild horses and burros. Horse advocates think that our carrying capacities on the range should be higher than what we have them set at. Livestock versus horses, cattle and sheep on the range, numbers seem to be higher than the horse numbers are on the range.
And there are many big interests out here. I'd say their chief enemy has been the ranchers, the livestock ranchers, who get enormous subsidies and who in fact do enormous damage to the public lands ecosystem. Since the swing to the right in the 1980s and very vociferous demands from Western ranchers and other maybe hunter organizations, they have begun to really eliminate the wild horse and burros and try and discredit and eliminate them, taking a very negative approach. And these interests have gotten their people into the positions of authority.
You can look at any type of business or any branch of government, and there's a buddy system. Your buddy gives you a contract, and then when he's got something going on, he turns around and gives it to you. It's very much alive in the BLM. From bottom to top.
I think the way the horse program was designed and handed to BLM was counterintuitive. They're a land management agency. They're not a horse management agency. So sometimes certain strategies that one part of BLM wants to apply to manage the horses runs counter to some of the other things that BLM is supposed to do. The system's really not designed to succeed.
The federal government is under fire tonight for allegedly mistreating thousands of beautiful, majestic wild horses in an aggressive roundup. The government sends low-flying helicopters to chase the horses into corrals and then takes them from the plains of the American West to federal holding pens. The government claims it's to save the horses from starvation. Critics claim the real motive is to clear the land for cattle grazing.
I also happen to be a rancher, and we own all the water on our ranch. And we do have wild horses as well that we share that water with. But I do see degradation of the habitat for wildlife, and the horses are basically eating themselves and the wildlife out of existence. Now I'm going to open it up to item number 3, which is public comment. You're up.
My name is Simona Netherlands. I'm a natural horsemanship trainer. The BLM is their own entity which isn't overseen by anyone. The only presence really that can stop the BLM or that can say do this or do that would be the president. And the Department of the Interior has effectively established that there is no science to their methods. There is no science to how they set their AMLs. There is no science to how they count the horses from the air. There is no science to how they write up their own handbook. They're pretty much making up their own rules as they go. So 25,000 horses in the entire United States of America. Do you understand what a futile, tiny little number of animals that truly is? I mean, we have 694 million federal acres. You do have a very, very powerful asset in your hands, which is the water rights. I mean, it's the most valuable asset of life. And we think it is just too bad that in your view it is an imposition to you to share your rights with wildlife and wild horses. And we think you seriously need to reconsider that and feel less threatened.
This is Mike Stremler, and you are a very well-dressed lady, and my wife would love to have those clothes. Could she come to your closet and borrow your clothes whenever she wants? Could I get the state to impose on you that my wife can borrow your clothes? Because I think
you're
you
not
should
comparing apples to apples at all.
I am.
You know what oranges are and you know what apples are.
I am talking about property. I'm talking about property, and I'm talking about thriving ecological balance. I'm using the words of...
life as a property. I mean, every life...
Ma'am, you're going to have to identify yourself, and you can't talk over the chairman. This isn't a conversation. It's property. If I'm talking about apples to oranges, to me, water is valuable.
Well, let's put it this way. And I'm not going to necessarily blame the ranchers. They're good ranchers. We can't have a wild horse program without the ranchers because the ranchers own the water. Okay? So, strange bedfellows, but bedfellows nonetheless. But when we have a system that's set up so that, you're spending almost as much money holding horses in facilities as you are trying to manage them out in the field, something's really wrong.
Americans spoke out that these horses are important to us. They're a melting pot directly connected to the land. And so I think that's how they became that symbol of freedom, that symbol of a resilient survivor, which we as Americans like to identify ourselves as. We took 19 stallions. For each one of those stallions, our plan is to take 4 mares. But we wanted to go in and try to identify the mares that belong to these stallions from the photographs that we took. They won't let us do that. They will send us a random load, but that's not what we want. We want these family bands to be reunited. We want them back intact. To us, the family is important. When they're gathered, they call for each other over those fences.
I've seen these guys out in the wild, the horses around here, and I've seen how strong the family bond is. And I just can't imagine somebody just ripping a baby away from a human mother. And when they do it to an animal, it's heartbreaking. Has never really been able to observe these gathers like we have just recently. The one I'm really interested in is one coming up on the birth control gather. That's what I was hoping they should be doing with our tax dollars instead of putting all these horses in holding facilities for the rest of their lives and never giving them a chance to be a horse anymore.
And I believe it can be changed if enough people just speak out, then eventually even the enemies will come around and they'll say, yeah, we were wrong. We should have learned how to share, you know. And that's what a lot of it is about, is learning responsibility. Learning to accept responsibility and own up to something that you've done that's wrong and say, you know, I can do better, or we can do better.
I don't know when I'm standing out there if I'm documenting a chapter of American history, but in the meantime, it's a fight worth fighting. At least I was there to document it. At least I was there for future generations, that maybe when something else that's precious is ready to disappear, it can serve as a lesson, as a template to say, no, it will happen, and you better wake up or it'll be gone.